Okay. Questions? Okay. So I thought we take a couple minutes here and just read out of the Upanishads. The Upanishads is the most sacred of the Hindu texts, right? It was written by ancient seers, mystics, people who were closest to God. This is the Isha Upanishad, I-S-H-A. They're all given names. Okay, here's the intro. Life in the world and life in the spirit are not incompatible. Work or action is not contrary to knowledge of God, but indeed, if performed without attachment, is a means to it. On the other hand, renunciation is renunciation of the ego, of selfishness, not of life. The end, both of work and of renunciation, is to know the self within and the Brahman without, and to realize their identity. The self is Brahman, and the Brahman is all. So, right off the bat, a couple of things you see. One, the self is Brahman, right? This is Atman that we've been talking about, right? So God is not just out there and everything, God is in us, right? And also, you see this idea of work without attachment, right? One of the cool things that the Hindus offer us in the modern age is that the best way to be happy is to not be attached to the results of your work. I think about that, I'm like, wow, if I don't care about the results of my work, then, I'm not going to be satisfied with the job well done. It might actually make me more depressed. The Hindu idea, though, is that if we're always thinking about the ends of our work, what we're going to accomplish, what we're not thinking about, one, is what we're actually doing. The enjoyment of work, living in that moment, right? That interaction in the instant of the present, which is constantly moving into which is constantly being shoved into the past. Instead of focusing on the future, to live right here in this moment and to enjoy the moment for what it is. If you focus on the results of your work, eventually you will be disappointed. Okay. So, filled with the Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet he still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace. Now, you think of the Hindu, maybe it's the Buddhist, that you often get this picture in your mind of somebody meditating, and what do they always say? Om, Om. Right? You ever wonder why they're always saying Om? Well, according to the Hindus, Om is the first syllable uttered by Brahman. And it's actually that noise, Om, that creates the universe. Okay, so Om is very powerful. So that's why at the beginning of every Upanishad, you're supposed to say Om, right? You read these in a kind of meditative state. Okay, so moving on. In the heart of all things, of whatever there is in the universe, dwells the Lord. He alone is the reality. Wherefore, renouncing vain appearances, rejoice in Him. Covet no man's wealth. You know what covet means? It means like want, be jealous of. So, Lord's in everything, right? Renounce vain appearances. Don't think about, vainness is like putting a lot of thought into your appearance or the appearance of your stuff and thinking about how good they look, right? So don't think about that. Just rejoice in the fact that God is in everything. Don't be jealous of anyone. Be happy that God's everywhere. Well may he be content to live 100 years who acts without attachment, who works his work with earnestness but without desire, not yearning for its fruits, he and he alone. Right? So work, don't worry about the results of your work. Right? Be earnest, do a good job, don't think about the results. And then the first line right there, well may he be content to live 100 years, right? And the assumption there is You know, living 100 years isn't a nice thing back in the day, right? You don't necessarily want to live a really long life because it means more suffering. Worlds there are without suns, covered up with darkness. To these after death go the ignorant, the slayers of the self. Right? Worlds without suns, dark places, places people go after death. So, you know, the interesting thing, you know, you start reading these Upanishads and you say, wait a minute, there are places that you could go after death for a while before you're reincarnated that are kind of like hell. There are also places that you go after death if you've got good karma that are really nice, kind of like heaven, and then you go get reincarnated again. The self is one, unmoving. It moves swifter than thought. The senses do not overtake it, for it always goes before. Remaining still, it outstrips all that run. Without the self, there is no life. And here, the self is Atman, is God. To the ignorant, the self appears to move, yet it moves not. From the ignorant, it is far distant, yet it is near. It is within all, and it is without all. It's everywhere. He who sees all beings in the self, and the self in all beings, hates none. Think about Siddhartha in the book, seeing God in everything and being able to meditate and move from his place into animals, into stones, into the river, etc., etc. To the illuminated soul, the self is all. For him who sees everywhere oneness, how can there be delusion or grief? The self is everywhere. Bright is he, bodiless, without scar of imperfection, without bone, without flesh, pure, untouched by evil. The seer, the thinker, the one who is above all, the self-existent. He it is that has established perfect order among objects and beings from beginningless time. To darkness are they doomed, who devote themselves only to life in the world, and to a greater darkness they who devote themselves only to meditation. So here again, you see that idea that you can know God through work and through understanding the world. Not just through meditation, which is very important, mind you, but there are other things in the world that can help you gain knowledge of God. Life in the world alone leads to one result. Meditation alone leads to another. So we have heard from the wise. They who devote themselves both to life in the world and to meditation, by life in the world overcome death, and by meditation achieve immortality. To darkness are they doomed who worship only the body, and to greater darkness they who worship only the spirit. Worship of the body alone leads to one result. Worship of the spirit leads to another. So we have heard from the wise. They who worship both the body and the spirit, by the body overcome death, and by the spirit achieve immortality. The face of truth is hidden by thy golden orb, O sun. That do thou remove, in order that I, who am devoted to truth, may behold its glory. O nourisher, only seer, controller of all, O illuminating sun, fountain of light for all creatures, withhold thy light, gather together thy rays. May I behold through thy grace thy most blessed form, the being that dwells therein, even that being am I. God is in everything, in the sun, in us. Let my life now merge in the all-pervading life. Ashes are my body's end. O mind, remember Brahman, O mind, remember thy past deeds. Remember Brahman, remember thy past deeds. And this is like a meditative chant that kind of winds up the reading here. O God, Agni, and this is one of the many gods of the Hindu pantheon. They have many, many gods, but they are all also created by Brahman. There's also aliens in Hinduism, also created by Brahman. O God, Agni, lead us to felicity. Thou knowest all our deeds. Preserve us from the deceitful attraction of sin. To thee we offer our salutations again and yet again. Okay. So that's the Upanishads, just one very short scripture in the Upanishads to give you an idea of how the Hindus worship both God and the world because they see them as one. And that through both work and meditation, a person can achieve knowledge of God, that's Brahman, of Atman, that's God inside us, and eventually achieve immortality. And what they mean by immortality, remember, is not like we go up there and hang out with the gods in paradise forever. It means ourselves disappear as they merge with Brahman, right? The disappearance of the self is the goal. Questions? If you have them, bring them to class tomorrow.